Welcome to the business track of the Data Science Salon YouTube channel. This is a presentation by Vishal, Juneja, lead data scientist at Condé Nast. He delves into leveraging data to understand subscriber behavior and drive more subscriptions by personalizing offers, site experiences for all those Condé Nast users. Enjoy.
Hey, my name is Vishal Juneja. I'm a data scientist at Condé Nast, and I'm leading some of the projects related to subscriber acquisition, subscriber retention, subscription attribution. And today I'll be talking about how we are leveraging data to acquire new subscribers. Right. So as per the agenda for today, I'll talk briefly about history and leadership of Condé Nast. I'll talk about subscription attribution next, and we'll move on to subscriber propensity models and framework. I'll discuss some of the experiments, use cases, and results, and then some of our future work. So Condé Nast, as many of you might already be aware of, is an American mass media company. It was founded in 1909, and it encompasses some of the world's most iconic brands, such as The New Yorker, Vogue, Wired, GQ, and many more, as you can see on this slide. We are operating in 32 different markets globally and publish in 26 different languages with more than 75 million monthly print readers and 363 million monthly web page views. And on next slide, we'll narrow the focus to our readers and content in the United States alone. So across all US brands, we have more than 8 million daily unique visitors, and 160,000 of them are logged in subscribers, which accounts for roughly 20% of our total daily visitors. So as you can see, we have a lot of user engagement and subscriber engagement as well, and a lot of data that is generated that we can use to build our models. And let me first talk about our subscription attribution models and how we are building tools to understand what factors drive subscriptions. And a general approach falls in line and is not very different from how other companies are building their own attribution model. And the first step is to generate a data set of user touchpoints and events, whatever you want to ascribe to, that are leading to the user journey, that are leading to subscription. And then secondly, we create attribution models on top of these sequence of points and journeys to measure and quantify the effect of each of those touch points that has an impact on how much impact it has on somebody's likelihood to subscription. And I'll delve deep into one of the use cases of this attribution model, and that's specifically content attribution model, where our end goal is to surface content that is leading to subscription, that is leading to more subscriptions. As you can see in the animation on the left, the process that we're trying to model is, as user visits our websites, they read a bunch of articles and eventually sign up for our magazines. So in the first step, we look at a user history of past end days. This end day could vary from brand to brand and company to company, leading to the length of user journeys on their brands or websites. The second step, as I mentioned in a previous slide, is to assign scores to each of these articles that lie on the pathway or on the user journey. And there are several ways to do that score assignment. As many of you would be already aware, there's linear touch, and we have experimented with Markov chain-based methods, Shapley-based methods as well. And for inference stage, we actually run our models on a daily basis, where we collect user journeys for all of our subscribers on that particular day and assign a score to each article. And this flexibility gives us an ability to slice and dice based on dates and content and many other dimensions, as I'll show in the next slide in use cases and impact section. All right. So the first use case that I want to mention is for our editorial teams, as these content attribution models have been productionized and they flow into a dashboard that helps our editorial teams to yield insights about what topics are leading to more subscriptions, whether it's humor, politics, what authors are driving more subscriptions on our brands, what type of content, whether it's short form or long form content that is more valuable, and etc. And I'm happy to say that we have become an yearly feature in the New Yorker, where one of our editors compiles a list at the end of the year of stories that index highest as per the model. Right? As per other use cases and impact, the second one I want to talk about is for marketing, where we have added additional variables in the model that go one step further from answering what drives subscription to why it drives subscription. And that's by attributing page views along subscription pathways to specific referrer outlets such as newsletter, social, homepage research, and other factors. And lastly, for product, we are doing experiments now, and we're using these attribution model outputs and scores to alter user journeys by recommending them articles that have high subscription value. And the hypothesis is that we can eventually move our audiences to a higher propensity to score by this strategy. Another upcoming use case is how we can use these model scores to implement hard paywall on our high value content. And finally, as we increase our footing in digital workspace, we want to understand, monitor, and forecast impacts of videos, podcasts on subscription revenue so that we can do budgeting, resource allocation in a better way. All right. With that, we'll go towards subscription propensity, where we're trying to answer which users are more likely to subscribe. And even before that, I'll take a step back and focus on some of the questions that we were asked as a data team, and specifically, which audience segment should we target to run campaigns on? Are these users who hit our paywalls? Are these users who are from a certain geolocation? Are these users who signed up for our newsletters? Or how many newsletters they signed up for? Are these users that have specific browsing behaviors? Do they come on a specific time of the day or on weekend, weekday, etc.? And whether they prefer to read a certain type of content or certain categories of content, etc. But instead of focusing on these single variables, we thought of a better way of managing this process, where we built multivariate models to predict who amongst our user population or visitors are more likely to subscribe. And to do that, we utilized hundreds of variables to build this model that includes various user behaviors, the topics they read, whether they hit the paywall, their engagement with content, and much more. And the side benefit of using this approach, an automated approach, is that we can continuously learn and update our model dependent on user behavior by keeping track of model performances, which happened recently when we saw that as COVID struck, many of the user behaviors kind of changed. But since we were monitoring the production model performance, we could incorporate many of those behaviors in our next model iteration. And the final goal of this model is to be able to tailor user site experiences and develop personalized campaigns, etc., and dependent on user propensity to subscribe. And so essentially, what we are saying is that let's not pepper everybody with subscription ads, but be a little bit smarter about targeting our user base by leveraging the spectrum of propensity and the gradient of propensity scores and building campaigns based on those audience segments. So for example, in this hypothetical use case, what we are suggesting is that maybe we should try to engage our low propensity audiences or low propensity subscribers to engage more with our content by making them sign up either via login or through our newsletters, and to our visitors or users who are upper in the funnel or rather lower in the funnel, we should probably show them subscription ads or do more customized offering so that we can yield higher LTV, overall LTV. And let's talk about some use cases and results and some of the experiments that we have done. And firstly, I'll talk about the dynamic gating experiment. And what we did was we lowered the paywall meter and reduced the number of free articles that a user can read if they're in a high propensity segment. And we ran this across several brands, and we saw that on one of the brands, there was 20% increase in subscription rates, and that's measured in the treatment group compared to the control group. Similar to the use cases mentioned before, we ran a low prop test where instead of showing subscription ads, we tried to engage our low propensity users by making them sign up to our email newsletters. And the results of that was that we saw a 2x in newsletter signups, and that too without impacting subscriptions, and overall a higher LTV. In the third use case, we leveraged our existing ad technology stack where we targeted high propensity users across our Condé Nast networks, and all by using first party data only. And the results of this was that we saw a CPA of lower than 50% compared to when we compared it to other acquisition campaigns. And lastly, I want to mention one of the campaigns that we ran where we leveraged our high propensity segment to target those people on Facebook, either directly or building a lookalike segment on Facebook itself. And again, the results are very encouraging. We saw highest CTR on the ads in this segment and highest conversion rates per impression when we compared it with other segments. Right. So I'll briefly touch upon our next steps. So as the focus of many of the media companies is moving from acquisition to retention, we are doing the same. We want to study our drivers of retention so that we can build models and appropriate treatments to better our users' product site experiences and eventually drive higher LTV by increasing user satisfaction. And secondly, as we have to adapt to the dynamic nature of our environment, where we have to deal with changing user behaviors and our websites, and as we increase our presence in videos and podcasts. So we need to incorporate these behaviors and variables into our models continuously. And lastly, we want to use sequence information by leveraging sequence-to-sequence model and modeling users in the form of user journeys and generating user journeys embeddings that we can use in many of our downstream models. That includes attribution, propensity, and also recommendations. All right. Thank you very much for listening in, and we can take questions. Thank you.
That was a presentation by Vishal, Juneja, lead data scientist at Condé Nast. He talked about leveraging data to understand Condé Nast's subscriber behavior and how to drive more subscriptions by personalizing offers and site experience for their users. If you enjoyed this presentation, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below.